Hi folks. Today I felt alive to addressing the topic of spiritual practice in relationship to non-duality. And this is quite a convoluted topic. There's a lot of different perspectives out there. I'm just throwing my perspective into the mix and you can do with it what you will. But I guess to start us off, just touching on the way that non-duality has been transmitted into Western culture, which, for better or for worse, personally, I think very much for worse, Western culture is now a globalized culture. We receive that transmission as a direct pointing. So the experience of non-dual awareness being offered to us by teachers who kind of talk through the preconceptions and the structures of our cerebral cortex into the space of presence itself. And that's a very helpful pointing. It's a very helpful method of kind of getting people out of their minds and into direct experience very, very quickly. However, this is quite a different approach to many of the lineages that non-duality and non-dual understandings emerge from. So some of those primary lineages is Advaita Vedanta, the tantric yogic lineages of particularly northern India, but it was spread throughout the subcontinent, and also Tibetan Buddhist lineages, and they have a very close relationship with those yogic lineages on the other side of the Himalayas as well. So in these traditional culturally contained lineages, non-dual pointing was reserved generally for someone who has become quite adept in dualistic spiritual practice. That is, lots of perhaps meditation techniques, breathing techniques, embodiment techniques, bhakti, prayer, offerings to the gods and the goddesses. There was a great plethora of practice that surrounded this non-dual teaching, and it was kind of you working your way in from the outskirts, which seemed very, very dualistic at first, to this core recognition of pure awareness as what it is that we're representing through gods and goddesses, through prayer, through purification rituals, and so on and so forth. And so it's become very popular in the West to kind of strip all of that back and just move directly into non-dual awareness. And I think for some people, perhaps this is just the right thing. However, something I notice is that folks can become very frustrated if they can't get it immediately. And, there's quite a lot of dialogue on the feeds at the moment around kind of the trap of non-dual teaching or the trap of spirituality. And, I get it. I really get it. And at the same time, there's a reason why these traditional cultures contained non-duality within what seems like unnecessary faff. So I'm going to address some of those reasons here. And the first one is that actually for many people, direct pointing doesn't work very effectively. It can be confusing, and it can feel frustrating, and it can feel as if everyone else in the room gets it but you. And because of that, quite often people may need some sort of practice, whether it's a concentration technique like yantra or, single-pointed awareness meditations, to sort of refine their attention and reduce the noise of the mind enough to be able to access that direct pointing. So there's a helpfulness in practice, just in, technically being able to access non-dual awareness. Then there's also, and I think in my mind, this is one of the more important points, is that non-dual awareness, if you've had one of these experiences or you're involved in non-duality in some way, you possibly understand what I'm talking about. That kind of clarity and crispness and being without the contents of mind, or, the contents of mind may still be there, but there's kind of a cutting through those contents to this clear, pure beingness. That in and of itself, as a singular experience, is not a penultimate experience. And because we can kind of access this crisp clarity, this cutting through, this kind of, it's often experienced as amorality as well. And I've heard some people involved in direct pointing relate to this as well, of literally saying, it's amoral. In the like, not amoral as in the opposite of moral, but yeah, you know what I'm trying to get at. So the problem with this is that if someone accesses that kind of clarity and intensity without having developed a sense of ethical understanding on the relative human level, and a deep, deep well of compassion, it can actually lead them to becoming quite amoral in the general sense of the term, or to, not seeing any reason why they need to work on the human level aspect of themselves, and their humanity and their willingness to operate as a harmonious being in this world. So a part of the practice and the preparation for accessing non-dual teaching in these traditions was to develop those qualities of the human, which helped them to really bring that crisp, clear awareness down into their heart, and to be able to live it and embody it from that place of deep compassion, rather than just this kind of cold, ethically words. It's always words, because when I like try and explain these things, I try and drop into the experience in order to explain it, and yeah, that's a whole recipe for having zero words. So if we're accessing that clarity and we don't have a level of human compassion pre-developed, it can be really problematic on a relative level in the world. And whilst it might be true that ultimate reality doesn't necessarily pertain to good and bad, we need to ask ourselves, why are we engaging in spiritual practice in the first place? Is it in order to enter into this kind of cold, clear, emotionless state? Or is it actually that we might bring from those places back into our everyday relative experience gifts? And I would go with the latter, and this is where we see the bodhisattva path, right? Is that our initial undertaking in the process of awakening might be to awaken the individual consciousness. But once that individual consciousness is awakened, there's then a commitment to kind of carry that forward for the benefit of all beings. And then further into Vajrayana Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and the like, where we see these non-dual pointers become much more predominant, they are taking that into even a step further, where it's no longer I am here to help other beings, but I am all other beings. So yeah, here's this, we've got this level at which the practices can be supportive of people who aren't able to access non-dual awareness immediately, and the practices also help to cultivate the kind of person who we might want to be when we access those, so that we don't do a disservice to the world around us in any way. And then the other critique that I've heard of practice as well is that, it becomes a trap, that whenever you're practicing, I'm just sort of paraphrasing a bunch of different people I've heard online, whenever you're practicing, then you're just striving, you're just seeking, and that in itself is a trap. And sure, practice is a trap. They're exquisite traps. I recall Ram Dass, I think he used the term exquisite traps, right? That they're designed to entrap us, to carry us a certain way, so that we can then disembark from that vehicle into the state of open awareness. And unless we do experience some, I'm speaking from the point of view of people who might need the support of practice in order to access non-dual awareness. Unless there's an attachment to that practice, it's not going to take us closer to being able to access non-dual awareness. Even though we know that it is always here, we're talking about being able to recognize that. So my response to that is that the way I experience practice now is not like a striving at all. In fact, practice for me feels more like a celebration, like an acknowledgement of the profound grace that is experienced through direct non-dual awareness, and kind of like a coagulation of the energy of that beingness with and in this body. So if I'm using mantra or prayer or meditation or hatha yoga, pranayama, asana, like all of these things, I don't feel like I'm practicing from the place of, if I do this, then I will get there. It's like I'm practicing from a place of appreciation for life, appreciation for the capacity of this vessel, this human vessel that I've been graced with, to carry being, to hold being, to be in and of being. And I think that these kind of like black and white critiques of practice as entrapment overlooks some of the nuances of what practice actually is. And I think it does folks a disservice in many ways, because if we only view practice as entrapment and we're only focused on direct pointing, which actually, it is a practice, just saying. Sometimes we can miss some of the deeper realities that emerge through practice, not from a striving point of view, but from the sense that once we've accessed non-dual awareness, it doesn't mean that awareness is stabilized or integrated into our being. And it can be really helpful to have a way of ritualistically reconnecting in a devotional kind of way to that beingness in order to start to cultivate its greater consistency. And that consistency, in my experience, also develops into unity with all things. It's possible to access non-dual awareness through direct pointing, and it feels contained within our own body. And that containment still reflects a layer of individualization that's very, very strong in Western globalized culture. But to take that recognition of pure awareness and to begin to dissolve the boundaries of our individual state of consciousness so that we can then start to embody a life, a way of being in the world, a relationship to what might be perceived previously as other, that really reflects community, unity, and the appreciation of shared beingness, of interbeing. And that can't come from this sort of top-down, head-based, non-dual awareness, which in fact, when we look at a lot of the kind of passed down, diluted teachings that have been removed from their original cultural context, it does really look very much like dualism, because the focus seems to be on this separation of who we are from the contents of consciousness and experience. My thoughts, no, I'm not that. My feelings, no, I'm not that. My experience, no, I'm not that. My relationship to so-and-so, no, I'm not that. It's a division or an othering, which is a natural, necessary step in being able to then move into a more unified space where we add back on all of those things, but from this place of pure beingness. But unfortunately, a lot of the contemporary teaching kind of misses that deepening aspect of the practice and of the teaching, and of what I feel non-duality really offers. And sadly, I think it really reinforces a westernized, individualized sense of me and other. And I think that is a reflection of this sort of like fast food mentality that we have in contemporary neo-colonial Western culture. You know, people want everything to be quick and easy and instantaneous. And so when we have teachers who kind of get online and say like the whole spiritual gamut is useless and actually you just need to realize this one thing and we're just going to point directly to it, that really satisfies our egoic desire just to be somewhere straight away without needing to put any time or energy or frankly love into the process. Because really if we step into a what I feel is a genuine non-dual understanding, there's actually nothing wrong with being in process. There's nothing wrong with needing practice. There's nothing wrong with wanting to explore a whole gamut of ways of relating to this unified field from many different diverse perspectives, whether that be prayer, whether that be meditation, you know, that they're all kind of facets of this one jewel. And by kind of saying, no, ignore all the facets, there's only the jewel, we're actually not being non-dualistic, because non-dualism can contain dualism. Non-dualism includes everything. And it includes that part of us that might feel longing for something, that might want to undertake a journey, because the journey itself is an enriching process that is made up of many immediate moments. It's made up of awareness in and of itself. So I just I've tried to approach this subject in several videos, and it's so difficult to articulate the nuances, because I think on the side of these kind of extreme non-dualistic teachings that are, in my mind, actually dualistic in nature, the arguments have a very compelling nature to an individualistic mind that might want instantaneous enlightenment, and also to feel a sense of self-satisfaction in having arrived somewhere with very little effort. And yes, absolutely, I do believe that, direct pointing can take us to that place of pure awareness, and it's very effective and very helpful at different stages of our journey. And at the same time, there's this richness that if someone has really embodied that non-dual recognition, they've kind of started integrating that and stabilizing it, what emerges from that realization often might look very much like dualistic practice. I'll leave you with that one. Again, what emerges naturally from a non-dual realization might in fact look like from the outside what seems to be dualistic practice. So non-dualism isn't going to contain any kind of judgment about what is included or excluded from truth. But it does continue with deep awareness of the way that it moves through the world and the effect that it has on the field in terms of harmony and disharmony, with a deepening commitment to truth. Thank you for lasting to the end of this video.